What's going on, it's the Polygon Don, and today I want to talk about 5 more underrated PS3 games from my game library. There's an action blockbuster inspired third-person shooter, an incredible rally racer that doesn't get the love it deserves, a controversial survival horror game, and more. So with the intro out of the way, let's get into it.
Send SWAT to back me up if they ever show.
I'm giving you a direct order, Detective. You go in there, I'm taking your shield and your gun.
Here. You point it in that direction, and you pull this to make it go bang. Feel free to point it at a bad guy, if you ever end up facing one.
Dead to Rights Retribution is a third-person cover-based shooter with a significant portion of the game involving intense bare-knuckle brawling. Developed by Volatile Games for the PS3 and Xbox 360, it was released in 2010 and as far as I'm aware didn't ever go to PC. So getting it on one of those two 7th gen consoles will be the main way for you guys to check it out should you wish to. In it you'll play as buff and gruff Grant City police officer Jack Slate, the son of the station chief Frank Slate, alongside his trusty canine companion and all-round good boy, Shadow. The game starts with a terrorist takeover of a skyscraper that houses a local TV news station. Arriving at the scene and frustrated with the lack of action coming from the police, Jack disobeys the orders of the officer in charge and storms in John Wick style to try and save as many hostages as he can. After coming within grasping distance of the man behind this attack, the assailant slips out of Jack's hands at the last minute, but Jack did manage to get his name, Riggs, and the goons working for him were members of the city's Triad gang. And so Jack and his father try to diplomatically approach the Triads with reason to try and get some answers and more importantly a lead on Riggs. But all hell breaks loose and Jack is forced to take a more direct and physical approach to getting his questions answered. The story dives a little deeper, but it's nothing that you haven't seen and heard a million times if you've played any of these kind of games before. Betrayal, revenge, redemption, you know the drill. It's your typical high-octane, brosif third-person action story that this gen just had so many of. There is a time and a place for everything though, and this scratches that mindless blockbustery itch that I need scratching every now and again. Playing a little like Die Hard the game, you'll be navigating Jack through straightforward and very linear environments, defeating any unfortunate souls that dare to challenge you. You can pick up weapons off the ground from defeated enemies, or run up to them while they're still alive and disarm them before blasting them in the face with their own gun. That was always pretty satisfying, I must say. There's a bunch of classic gun types that you'll find throughout the game to keep things interesting, but annoyingly, never enough ammo for them. But if there's no guns around, no problem, as Jack is pretty good at serving up some tasty knuckle sandwiches. You can strafe out of the way of your opponent's swings with square, hit them with a few quick jabs by pressing triangle, send a couple of haymakers with circle, and break the guard of shielded enemies with the press of triangle and circle combined. Do enough damage and a prompt to press the X button will appear, allowing Jack to perform one of many violent and cinematic finishing moves. There's a fair few variations here, but they still grow a little tiresome after the 30th time you've witnessed them. You can grasp enemies to throw them over ledges or use them as human shields, which is pleasant. And there's also a focus mode where once a meter is fully charged, usually by performing headshots, you can press L1 to slow down time and line up that perfect kill shot. Probably the best feature of this game, however, is Shadow, Jack's stealthy and sharp-fanged husky. Through various segments of the game, you will gain full control of Shadow, who can get to places Jack can't and is much more quiet about it. Playing as Shadow, you will infiltrate an enemy base and using his heightened senses see enemies through walls and even detect their heartbeats. Then, when the time is right, exterminate every single one with fairly visceral takedowns to the jugular or the nether regions. Once the job's done, you can then drag their bodies out of the way and hide them to keep the rest of the guards unaware of your presence. While playing as Jack is fun and more versatile, it still gets a little samey after a while. Thankfully, the levels where Shadow takes centre stage are placed perfectly to break up that kind of monotonous gameplay loop. It's not the best third-person action game on the system, and the story isn't anything to write home about either, but it does have some noteworthy mechanics that kept me engaged and entertained through its 8 or so hour campaign. The fighting animations were graphic and gory, the enemy disarm system was satisfying and always felt good to pull off, as did silently and brutally exterminating bad guys playing as Shadow. So if you're in the mood for some 80s blockbuster action vibes, sick explosions and gnarly takedowns, then get some mates over for a weekend and give this a go. It's mindless and broy, but every now and again that's just the ticket.
It takes a special breed of person to be that high and still be in charge. Made him dangerous, fearless.
I have more important things to do. Clean this up, including them. They fucked up.
Bohan, a king from a distant country, seeks the heavenly sword. He seeks it as a symbol of his dominance over my clan, and with it, his dominance over the land. Bohan has hunted us for months, and he is relentless. My people are great warriors, but we cannot run forever. Kai!
I don't like these drones. I don't like them.
We've got to get to the fort. Now!
Releasing very much in that launch window of the PS3, Heavenly Sword is a third-person action-adventure game developed by Ninja Theory exclusively for the console. The game is set in an unnamed world during an unnamed time where warring tribes are fighting over possession of the Heavenly Sword, rumoured to be a weapon from a divine being left in the mortal world after a great battle. Tribes would come and go as they desperately seek to claim the sword for themselves. Only anyone who wielded it, while extremely powerful for a time, would eventually be worn down and gradually killed by the sword itself. A warrior tribe then took possession and vowed to protect it and people from it, guarding it for generations. You'll play as Noriko, a member of this tribe, who is headstrong, athletically gifted and outspoken. She has a complicated relationship with the tribe leader and her father, Master Shen, which is showcased really well through the writing and performance capture. And there's some pretty big names involved in the cast. Anna Torv from Fringe and Mindhunter plays Noriko, while Andy Serkis plays the main antagonist of the game, King Bohan. The action is cinematic and fluid with a heavy emphasis on combos and stances. There's speed stance where Noriko's sword will split into two, providing a balance between speed and power. Range stance, here your two swords will be linked by a chain, allowing you to keep multiple enemies at bay with increased speed and impact frequency, but are much weaker in power. And finally, there is power stance, where your sword becomes a two-handed greatsword. Here, speed and flexibility is replaced by raw power and greater damage. Combat is really fun. There are enemies that can only be damaged using a particular stance, and when you have a mixed bag of these dudes hurtling towards you, switching between stances was easy and intuitive. It's not a complete walk in the park either, with the boss battles being noticeably more tricky to overcome. Unfortunately, they also come with QuickTime events with windows that seemed a little too unreasonable at first, but that could just be that my muscle memory for those blasted things had begun to forget they existed. It's not just Noriko that you'll be controlling either. Some parts of the game require you to play as Kai, a kind of younger sister figure to Noriko. Only Kai doesn't really do melee combat, she instead uses bows to fight. But it's here where it does start to feel a little like the sole purpose of this game is to show off all the bells and whistles Sony's new console, well at the time at least, was capable of. Using the 6-axis controller, you can guide projectiles once launched to their desired locations, using what the game calls aftertouch. The trajectories of Kai's arrows or Noriko's cannonballs, for example, can be altered post-launch and manoeuvred to strike destinations with more accuracy. The problem I have is that I've never really rated the motion sensing capabilities of the 6-axis controller. I find it finicky at the best of times, so these sections were a little eye-rolly for me. They actually required me to switch up my own gamer stance, if you will. I'm practically lying down when I game usually, but each time these sections popped up, so did I, sat on the edge of my sofa, controller out in front of me and perfectly level. More of a slight inconvenience than anything else, and only because I'm a lazy little swine, but thought I'd share my thoughts on it anyway. With this releasing so early in the PS3's life and being a console exclusive, it does fall into the trap of it feeling a little like a tech demo at times. There's way more gyrating involved in this than I usually like in my games, but I still gave it a pass as the other elements that make up the game are so strong. I was happy to power through the rough times just to see what else it had to offer. Story is great, acting was top tier, as was the tech used to capture the actors' performances. It still looks great to this day. So if you haven't played this yet or own it, this still cheap exclusive title should be in everyone's collections really, providing you can cast your mind back to a time where console gaming was a bit more active and handsy.
Oh, please give it to me, or else I'll kill the old man painfully. And I can be quite inventive.
Get this sword away from him!
Kill her.
The sword does have power. I can feel it. In fact, I'm counting on it. If what is written is true, its power will soon drain my life force and it will kill me. By wielding it, I have become a ghost of flesh and blood. But really, what was I before?
Sega Rally on the PS3, or Sega Rally REVO if you're in the US, is, as the name clearly states, a rally racing game developed by Sega, and a massively underrated one at that. Less simmy than something like Colin McRae or even the Dirt franchise, this feels a lot more arcadey in its gameplay feel, which makes sense considering this is kind of a console port of Sega Rally 3 from the arcades. I say kind of as the arcade version served as the basis for this, but the two were standalone projects. There are over 30 cars to play with, most being unlocked as you progress through Championship mode, and these are grouped into 3 separate classes. Premier Class, which is your more standard 4-wheel drive rally cars, Modified Class, which is 2-wheel drive and Super 2000 cars, and Master Class, where the mostly classic cars are grouped. You get points when you complete tournaments in Championship mode, and each tournament usually consists of 3 separate races with 3 laps apiece, and depending on your standing once the tournament reaches its conclusion will determine how many points you receive. Obviously the higher up on the table, the more points you will get. And points mean prizes, i.e. more tournaments, cars, paint jobs and the like, you know, pretty standard stuff. When you enter a tournament and select the car you wish to drive, you then have to decide what set of tyres you wish to drive with. There's only 2 to choose from, off-road and tarmac. Off-road provides greater traction on loose surfaces like mud or sand, while tarmac will, as you may have guessed, provide better grip on harder surfaces. Tournaments and the tracks set within them usually have a mix of both, and you don't get to switch at all once the tournament starts, so it really kind of falls down to preference. Obviously, if you're trying to max out points for each tournament, you'll probably be replaying them multiple times, so after a while you'll become familiar with the tracks and therefore which tyres would be better suited. But for a casual like me, I just stuck on off-road tyres every single time and didn't find all that much pushback from the game, to be honest. Like I said earlier, this is not a simulation game, it's a lot more chilled out than that. As is the case with most rally games and many arcade races in general, it's all about going sideways round bends and rarely taking your finger off the accelerator. It does take a little getting used to, but once it clicks and you just lock into the rhythm of the game, it starts to become really bloody enjoyable drifting round the many hard rights, easy lefts and hairpin corners at pretty much full speed. It's also fairly forgiving in the sense that your car doesn't take any damage at all. I should know, as I battered mine in those first few races as I was getting a feel for the physics of the game, and no damage to the vehicle's exterior was visible, nor was the performance of the car hampered in any way. So feel free to bash into anything and anyone you want. The only penalty from doing so is that it slows you down. Quite a bit actually, which is fairly annoying if you're trying to come first. You practically need to drive a perfect race to beat that first place car and claim its position, which isn't too much of a challenge in the early tournaments but definitely poses a problem later down the line. It still looks great too, especially for its age. The cars and the environments look lively and colourful. There's the usual extra fluff Sega loves to add in the background as you race, like fighter jets flying overhead or helicopters hovering above you, whipping up a dust cloud. The only real downside is that it doesn't run at 60 FPS, which is a shame, but it is a consistent 30 as far as I could tell. All in all, not a whole lot needs to be said about this. It's a solid rally racer that I hardly ever hear people talking about. So if you're quite partial to an arcade racer but aren't too keen on all the tweaking and tinkering that comes with the more sim-like racing games, then definitely try this out if you haven't already.
Easy ride. Medium right. Easy left. Medium right.
I taste your fear. So many questions.
Then I suppose you're the answer man, shithead? Who are you anyway?
Join me. No more pain. No more fear. You only have to die.
You're quite a negotiator.
Alone in the Dark Inferno is a survival horror game developed by Eden Games and published by Atari for the PS3. You'll play as Edward Carnby, a paranormal investigator who recently underwent an exorcism at the hands of some occultists. After awakening from the procedure, now with a convenient dose of amnesia, he finds that the occultists who performed the exorcism on him and the reason for his recent concussion now intend to take him to the roof so he can have a much longer, more eternal kind of nap. As Edward is being led, the person in charge of this task is suddenly slaughtered by an unseen force that gives Edward an opportunity to escape. With some proper Ghostbusters-style haunted tower block shenanigans, you'll guide Edward to safety via some janky platforming and puzzle solving. You'll be putting out fires with fire extinguishers while also using them to bash down doors in order to rescue people, all while trying your hardest to keep yourself alive too. Eventually, you'll meet art dealer Sarah Flores, probably the best voice actor in the game, but that's not saying much, and together you fight tooth and nail to get out of a building hell-bent on ending you, with the goal of getting to the relative safety of nearby Central Park. There's a plot regarding a demon with a grudge, a philosopher's stone and incompetent occultist thugs, but I'll let you guys experience that for yourselves. What is quite cool is that this is all presented in the form of an episodic DVD series. Chapters or episodes are neatly wrapped up after about an hour or so each and usually end with a cliffhanger. Then when you start a new chapter, it gives you a previously on montage to bring you up to speed. But that's not the only connective tissue to DVDs or Blu-rays. If you find yourself having a problem with an enemy encounter or tricky puzzle, you can skip forward to the next scene and the game will catch you up on what you missed at the start of the next chapter. It's pretty gimmicky and a massive sign of its time, but it's still quite a cool feature nonetheless. Alone in the Dark Inferno on the PS3 released in November 2008 and is an updated and enhanced version of Alone in the Dark, which was released on PC and Xbox 360 only a few months earlier. I'm not counting the Wii and PS2 versions here as they're practically different games, developed by an entirely different studio. But if you were to go off reviews for the original Xbox 360 version, then you probably wouldn't touch this with a barge pole. They were shockingly bad, and the sentiment around the game online wasn't any better. Even as recently as a few months ago, people were still having a dig at this game, namely the controls, camera and combat as a whole. Now, has this revised Inferno edition exclusive to the PS3 fixed all these issues? Well, I couldn't actually tell you as I never played the original, but what I can tell you about the PS3 version is that it's a hot mess of jank, with a camera that's so temperamental and flippant you'll be biting your own hand in frustration, and combat that is just as infuriating as it is exhausting. So why am I including it in this list? Well, because it's compelling, genuinely addictive, massively ambitious, and quite frankly not like anything else I've played on the PS3. It takes itself so seriously while at the same time having a campness to it that it is blissfully unaware of. It takes the survival aspects of the genre to the nth degree while still feeling a little half-baked and shallow. The camera can't make up its mind whether it wants to be in third or first person. The music is some of the best I've heard in a game from this gen. while the driving segments are some of the worst I've ever experienced in my life, with the only saving grace being that they're usually during some mad spectacle of a set piece and thankfully don't last that long. I mean, there's so many ups and downs. There's also a ridiculous amount of mechanics and systems in place here that the game continues to pile up as its 10 or so hour runtime progresses. It's so over the top. Damage to your character is visibly identifiable on Edward's body, which you have to individually treat one at a time using different healing items depending on the severity of the wound. I mean, you have to manually blink at certain points in the game, for goodness sake. Inventory is stacked up in convenient little pockets inside of your jacket like you're some sort of Fagin type wheeler dealer off the streets. So in order to browse your inventory, you open up your jacket like a flasher and look down. It's mental and I love it. Also, a surprising amount of items can be combined to make something else entirely. Mosquito spray and a lighter for an impromptu flamethrower, double-sided tape and lighter fuel for a sticky bomb, etc, etc, all of which come in handy in both its terrible combat and its surprisingly good environmental puzzles. The scale and scope of the destruction in the environment was also genuinely impressive. Was it really that scary? No, not at all, but it does have a lot of atmosphere going for it. The house you start the game in with its classic 80s Ghostbuster vibe was amazing to explore and escape from, and the park you end up in had some genuinely eerie areas and set pieces too. It is janky, yes, and I did audibly sigh each time I had to face anyone in combat, but I can't lie, I still had a really great time with this game. It's almost like every idea they had in the very first meeting during production for this game just got greenlit. It's all over the place in terms of tone, mechanics and even quality, but man is it ambitious though. Proper swing taking. They don't all land, but I appreciate the effort. So I do definitely recommend it, providing you're aware of its issues, which I've hopefully addressed here, and are a bit like me in that you have a morbid curiosity for peculiar design choices. Thankfully, you can still find this for relatively little cost, so even if you just wanted to try it out, it shouldn't break the bank.
Anna? It's Jack!
Who are you? What have you done to her?
She's one of my hosts now, as you once were. You, my most perfect puppet.
You've got to be kidding me. Oh man, let the good times roll.
You have a very twisted sense of fun, Sergeant.
Open fire!
Binary Domain is a third-person action shooter developed by Ryuga Gotoku Studio, or RGG for short, the now fairly famous developers of the Yakuza Like a Dragon franchise. A big fan of their work here on this channel. I've already spoken about their Fist of the North Star adaptation in a previous video I made. Link will be in the description if you want to check it out. And while that was an awesome game, it wasn't too much of a departure from what they were already doing with Yakuza. Binary Domain, on the other hand, is leaps and bounds different to anything I've seen from them before. I know the company's previous iterations dabbled in racing games and even kickstarted the Monkey Ball series, but since becoming RGG, they have pretty much just been the Yakuza Like a Dragon studio/factory, which is understandable considering the frequency of those games being released. So this definitely feels like the most distinct title in their more recent catalogue of games. The game is set in Tokyo, Japan in the year 2080, where global warming has caused devastating worldwide flooding, leaving much of the planet completely uninhabitable. Because of this, governments were forced to build cities above the new waterline using the previous and now ruined cities of old as a foundation. As much of the world's population had passed away during this time of crisis, robots were created and used as the main labour force, with an American robotics firm having the majority of the market in a chokehold. Global concerns regarding human-like robots dubbed Hollow Children led to the creation of the New Geneva Convention, a new set of laws banning research into robots that could pass as humans. The vast majority of the world's countries signed, and as a result a global task force nicknamed Rust Crews were formed to deal with any breaches of the convention. In the game, you'll play as a member of a Rust Crew sent to Japan in order to uncover a conspiracy regarding two heavyweight global tech companies. You and your crew will be fighting your way through Tokyo to slowly unravel the story behind the Hollow Children. Gameplay consists of your classic 7th gen third person action, lots of shooting and taking cover. But what sets this apart is the ability to issue commands to the other members of your crew. You can do this with a press of a button, or, if you have a headset, can issue the commands verbally using the mic, and the game should follow your commands accordingly. Now I say should, as I heard that despite the game being able to recognise 6 different languages, of which English is one, the results were a little hit and miss. Because of this, I didn't bother and just pressed the buttons on my controller instead. I don't even think I have a headset for my PS3 anymore. Either way, cool idea even if it didn't turn out too well, but that's not all, as the commands you give and the choices you select when in conversation all feed into how your squad views and trusts you via an in-game mechanic called the consequence system. Your performance in battles, the actions you take and the way you treat your squad will impact their opinions of you. This affects not only the story but the gameplay itself, as well as the ending you'll receive. Crew members will start to behave differently depending on trust levels, and it's surprising how well this works. Sometimes they can get in your way, which is annoying, and they can come across a little needy at times too, but it still genuinely feels like there's some really cool tech under the hood of this game, powering all this smart AI. Even the enemy AI felt crafty, switching up their own tactics to try and get the drop on you as the levels play out. I suppose it's all rather fitting given the topic and theme the game is covering. Stats of the main protag you'll be controlling, as well as the members of your crew, can be upgraded with nanomachines that will need to be fitted into place. The nanomachines required to do this, alongside upgrades to your weapons, can all be purchased through in-game shops that you'll find throughout your playthrough. With a story that's even more relevant today than it was when this game originally released, and its badass futuristic sci-fi vibes, it still looks absolutely stunning even by today's standards, with genuinely amazing action set pieces, and even though the levels themselves are linear, you do get an impressive sense of scale from them. This is also perfectly exemplified by the epic boss fights you'll be battling in. So if you haven't got this one in your collections, then I suggest picking this up next time you're shopping, as I very much doubt you'll be disappointed. It's great.
Oh shit, don't this boy ever get tired?
Shut up and jump!
Oh shit! That scraphead is really starting to bug me.
Fire in the hole!
Shit!
And there you have it guys, another 5 classic PS3 games that deserve a little more attention than I feel they get in these kind of videos. Hopefully there's a couple in there that you might want to add to your collections. Let me know down in the comments which ones you'll be picking up next time you're game hunting. If you enjoyed the video, then have a think about hitting the like button, as it genuinely helps out the channel quite a bit. And if you're new here and like all things PlayStation, then subscribe to keep updated on all future uploads. Next up we have the latest entry in my PS4 Hidden Gems series, and I can't wait to show you guys the games I have lined up for that video. But that's going to do it for today though gang, so until next time, take care, be good and game on.